In the course of their conversation, they begin talking about how the samurai would do flower arrangements and calligraphy to help with their dexterity. This is Meghan's response. Of course, she has to put her hands to her forehead because that's the way she's decided to play act shock, amazement, or confusion, whichever she needs to play in the moment. And she's like, you guys, how crazy is it that I do flower arranging and calligraphy? I don't know. Not very. Hello, how are you? Welcome to my channel. My name is Cheer Denise. All right. Today, we need to talk about Meghan Markle's show. Obviously, season 2 is out. And as I told you, we would be doing episode by episode. So we've got the first episode today. But before we even start talking about that, can I just say, how did you lose such an excellent opportunity to call her show As Ever, Meghan? Isn't it the most bogus thing in the world that it's called With Love Meghan when her products are called As Ever and so is her little company? I mean, obviously we know how that happened. Her intention was to call her jams, jellies, and dry biscuits American Riviera Orchard, but then that had to be scrapped for various reasons, you know. And so then she had to call her little brand As Ever. But everything was already underway with the Netflix production. The name for the show was already out and all of this. So she couldn't slip in her new product name. But it's just so unsatisfying in a way to have With Love Meghan when it's all about As Ever. Right? If she wants to, you know, she's like, I always end everything with As Ever. Well, then why isn't your show called that? You know, so it's already just, you know what it does? It sets the stage for the clunky, junky reality of what this show is. Bunch of piecemeal business. We want to say a couple of positives before we dive right down into the negative, because that's what the majority of the show is going to be. So let's try to set a tone of kindness and generosity where we can. I would say the production of the show is excellent. It's a really pretty show. And I would also say that I'm only 2 episodes in. I'll be honest. I've not binged this whole thing or anything. But in the 2 episodes I've seen, I have to say that even the projects that she does, because she's always got some kind of crafting thing going on, they're better this time. The last time when we were making beeswax candles, I mean, how 1993, you know, please. But this time, it's just a little bit more interesting. Like in today's episode, we're going to be doing water marbling. And, you know, it was kind of fun. Yeah, that's kind of like a trendy thing right now, but still, it was fun to see her do it. And tomorrow's episode, when she's with Chrissy Teigen, got a lot to say about that. She's going to be making jewelry with dried flowers or whatever. So, I mean, the crafts are a little bit more entertaining. And, you know, the food looks good, mostly because she's not really making it. But even in tomorrow's episode, when she's going to make some sourdough bread, you know, I mean, that's more interesting than the, what was she making, focaccia one time? I mean, it's just and of course, sourdough bread had its moment in 2020, so that's still a 5-year-old idea. Not that people haven't been making sourdough for decades and decades and decades, but you know, it becoming trendy and popular and you doing your own starter and everything like that really became a thing during the pandemic. For some of us, it was already a thing, but then the vast majority of people started trying making sourdough and realized, oh, you can do this. So, you know, she's doing that. So, I mean, her ideas are slightly more up to date, not very, but they are more interesting. And again, the production value is good on the show. So, just as a feast for the eyes, yes, you know, it does look pretty. But see, that is her skill set, I think. I mean, she's all about arranging little details and things like that and making something visually pleasing. But you know what else looks visually pleasing? The ice cream in an ad that is actually a scoop of lard. You know what I'm saying? You can make something look really great. And food photographers know all about the tips and tricks, you know, that milk in that cereal bowl, that's glue, you know, so I don't really care if you can make something look pretty, because what is the substance of it, you know? But a metaphor for Meghan, I suppose. All right, let's get right into today's episode. Today's episode featured her little friend, Daniel. Can I tell you about somebody who is like a toddler in an adult man's body? The way he's just uncertain about everything. He's not sure what to do. He's not really sure what he's supposed to be doing with his hands, his face, anything. His continual look of confusion or just wonderment at the world that's unfolding in front of him. I mean, it's disconcerting, honestly, to see an adult act the way Daniel acts. If you'll recall from last time, Daniel was her makeup artist way back when she was on Suits, and she had no money, and it was just so difficult to sort of figure out her way in the world. And she had this event to go to, and then she's looking for someone to do her makeup, and then she met Daniel, and they just clicked. Probably because he's a dimwit who can't figure out his own mind, and same with Harry, she doesn't have any problem figuring out your mind for you. Anyway, she and Daniel have become big friends, and he's come back for the next show. Well, of course, I was like, how's this going to go? Is he going to cut himself? And you know what's really funny? From the very first scene, they're already talking about, can he handle his knife? You'll remember last time. Of course, last time was probably the day before, since they probably flew him in and filmed 2 episodes with him. Anyway, it's kind of this awkward exchange because, you know, Daniel's in the kitchen with her opening scene. She's talking about their 2 guests that are coming, 2 New York chefs. Well, actually, a baker and a chef. And they're coming, and she says that they're going to have this fun double date today. What does that even mean? But the 2 of them are talking about they're going to make some onion tartlets. She says to him, well, can you cut up the onions? Are you a little bit more confident with the knife this time? And he's like, yeah, but you know, I am. I think the problem last time was the knife was too small. I need a bigger knife for my manly hands. And she's like, oh, it's the knife's fault, was it? Okay, Meghan. So already we're starting the show out with Meghan shaming her friend for the last episode. You know, try to point out his poor knife skills because we were all too busy watching hers last time, right? I'll also say that we're also going to see her zesting lemons with a little bit more technique. And I say that loosely. I mean, how hard is it to zest a lemon? But you'll recall her last attempt. Okay, so this time, I can't remember if it's this episode, I think it's next episode, where we'll see her zesting lemons again. And it's like, it just feels the same as it does with everything that Meghan does. We're going to see her answering a lot of her critics in this season. Critics who questioned her in last season. All right. So anyway, she brings Daniel on. She wants to make sure everyone remembers that he cut himself. You know, at least she never cut herself, even though she was over there just doing whatever with a knife. And they make their little onion tartlets. And then here come our guests. Our guests are David Chang and Christina Tosi, I think is how we say her last name. Tosi. Tosi. And she's the baker, he's the chef, and they both have New York restaurants. Apparently, Daniel lives right up the street from both their restaurants, so they all seem like they're good friends. Okay. And as they come in, the onion tartlets are done. But Meghan wants to let them know that she has some eggs that she thought they could maybe fry up some eggs to put with the onion tartlets because her silkies just started laying. Shockingly, both baker and chef act like they don't even know what a silkie is. Well, obviously it's a kind of chicken. What else is she got out there laying? You know, it's not some kind of hair wrap. So what is the confusion here? But anyway, the chef and the baker have no idea what kind of a chicken this is. And so she's like, they laid these adorable tiny little eggs, and I thought we could just put a little fried egg on each one. So they fry up the eggs. And then Meghan does her classic, which I just can't deal. You know, Meghan's a great one for always trying to jump in and not let somebody finish the punchline of their bit of advice. So David says, you know, have you ever had it where you want the outside of the egg to be kind of crispy and delicious, but you still want the yolk to be a little bit runny? So the way you do that is, and then Meghan jumps in and is like, yes, put a lid on it and it steams the egg. Shut up. Shut your dang mouth. You know, it's like, what are you jumping in for? Obviously, he brought this up because he wanted to, you know, give a little bit of pro advice to the audience. And she never lets people finish. We saw her do this time and time and time again. She's a great one for the technical jargon, as we know, with the time-coded edits and her hands in the granular. And so if there's any little bit of technical know-how that she somehow looked up or read about, she loves to jump in and tell the audience before the professional gets to validate herself on screen. I hate it, but it was just an indication really truly of what was to come. At this point, they stand around and they eat. Daniel's just shoveling food in his mouth. And the chef and the baker are like, oh, wow, we were going to try to eat a little bit more neatly. But well, you're a professional eater, Daniel. You know, we'll follow your cues. It's a little awkward, honestly. From the rest of the show, they're all going to follow these animalistic eating behaviors that Daniel has brought to the table. More about that later. But you've never seen 4 adults with worse table manners. That's all I'm going to say right now. At this point, Meghan decides to hand out some gifts she's made. And this is where we get to go back in time and watch her do this craft where she does this water marbling on these silk scarves. She makes a scarf for Christina, who then promptly puts the scarf in her hair upon receiving the gift. And the men she gives pocket squares. we get to watch her do this water marbling. She makes the presents, and of course she starts with herself. She's going to make herself something. I can't decide if that is colossally self-involved or she wanted to mess up maybe on something that was for herself and not what she intended to give. Good call, because her first scarf was a heap of junk. This water marbling technique is where you drop a bunch of, little droplets of dye on top of water that has been sort of thickened to keep that dye on top of the water. And then you swirl around the dyes, and then you lay the silk over the top of the water. The dye soaks in, and then you pull it up. It's really cool. And I think it's a fun craft idea. It was a fun craft for the show, so whoever came up with that one, good one. Her first attempt, as I said, bleak. But then she went on to do better with Christina's scarf and then the pocket squares for the men. Not color combos I would definitely go to for myself. The pocket squares were a little bit, but whatever, the marbling was interesting. So, the whole point was the technique, right? So, okay, so she does that. She passes out her little gifts. Everyone's like, oh, wow, Meghan, aren't you just the next Martha Stewart, So she gets her accolades and praise because, she's always giving gifts so that she can get praise and appreciation. I've just never seen anybody give a gift with less altruism. It just always feels like it's in pursuit of her own praise and worship. It never feels like it was something she wanted to do genuinely. She just has an air when she hands out these presents of, let's all stop and talk about me and what I did. To me, I feel like this whole thing about giving somebody a present on camera. And again, is this just me being nitpicky? Lord, I don't want to be a nitpicky person. I really don't. I mean, everyone's like, yeah, right, sure, you make a living off of it. But really and truly, I don't want to be nitpicky. It just feels like we could have still done the segment about her making gifts and not had it be a scene where she hands out gifts and waits for compliments about her crafting skills. To me, I don't care for that, but that's just me. All right, moving right along. Now she says that they're all going to go outside and they're going to do some flower arranging because she says that today it's all about getting out of your comfort zone. So that's going to be a big theme today, getting out of our comfort zones. And so she decides to do something that she feels great about and that she knows they won't. Oopsies. And so she sets everybody outside. She's got all these flowers. She's got all these pots. She tells everybody to choose their vessel. David is hella not here for it. He's like, oh, his face the whole time. He's not pleased. But again, it's all about getting out of your comfort zone and just learning how to be in the moment, be present, find joy in unexpected places. David looks like he would rather climb in a manhole and find his way to the next city through the sewer. He is so not here for it. But anyway, they start arranging. Immediately, we've got problems because Meghan has provided pots with holes in them and cracks. So everyone's arrangements go to hell in a handbasket right quick. Everybody chooses a vessel that promptly leaks water all over the place. So never am sure if Meghan does this stuff on purpose. Was she just overlooking it and just found a bunch of things that looked like they might work and didn't check? Or did she put out things that might have a problem so she could have a relatable moment? I'm not sure. But she goes on, they're all doing their flower arrangements. When I tell you she and her 3 friends don't know what the hell. She's over there flower arranging because, of course, she thinks this is one of her great gifts, a spiritual gift, if you will. The other 3 are over there picking weeds. You've never seen such messes in all your dang life. I am telling you, vases of actual roadside weeds. These don't look good. This looks bad. At one point, poor little Daniel, again, flabbergasted isn't even the word for the way he enters the world. He finally decides to scrap his original project, and he comes up with what appears to be the makings of a child having wandered into the garden, never having been told to pick a flower with its stem. He's over here with a bunch of flower heads that he's stuffed into a small container. Blessed Redeemer, what is this? And then, of course, we've got Christina, who's like, I don't even like flowers, so I'm just going to go for the greenery. What she means is she's going to pick a bunch of weeds and then kind of try to them. And then she sort of tries to tie them together in a rather wild mess. And the thing is, I don't need everything to be ship shape. I'm really fine with some overflowing greenery, but this was it's a lot. And then David is doing what he says is some kind of Japanese kind of thing. And so that's his reason for the mess he's made. It's cultural. I just wouldn't understand it. In the course of their conversation, they begin talking about how the samurai would do flower arrangements and calligraphy to help with their dexterity. This is Meghan's response. Of course, she has to put her hands to her forehead because that's the way she's decided to play act shock, amazement, or confusion, whichever she needs to play in the moment. And she's like, you guys, how crazy is it that I do flower arranging and calligraphy? I don't know. Not very. I mean, a lot of people do both. Like, always making it about her, right? Always trying to make it seem like she's this unicorn of a human. Lucky you. A real life samurai is ultimately what she wants to convey to you. Once we're done arranging the flowers, we need to pan down the table and look at everybody's pile of crap. We have Daniel's tiny little bouquet full of flowers with broken stems. Then we have the Japanese art, and then we have Christina's pile of weeds. Of course, at the end is Meghan's magnificent flower arrangement. I don't know what anybody else thinks. I know a lot of people feel compelled to criticize everything Meghan does. I don't feel compelled in this moment to criticize this bouquet. I think it looks really nice. But also, of course it would, next to the pile of crap that everybody else did. And you know what this is? This is the bride who chooses only her fat friends for bridesmaids. That's what this is. Okay, like these arrangements are terrible. So, of course, by default, she looks like the magnificent queen who rises like a phoenix from the ashes. I'm telling you right now, it is so evident and obvious that she was out of her comfort zone with a baker and a chef in her kitchen, that she chose to put them in a situation where she knew their skills would not shine so that she could come out looking so much better. Because, of course, everyone knows she can't cook. She can't bake. She's always talking about how she can't bake. She doesn't like to follow the rules. She can't follow directions. We know. We saw you with the royal family. And so she needed to make sure that they were diminished and she was brought high and they were brought low. That's what that scene was about. Moving on. We now go to the kitchen so that more debauchery can ensue. Meghan wants to make s'mores from scratch. She wants to make graham crackers. She wants to make the marshmallows. She wants to do everything from scratch. And Christina, as the baker, is going to lead the charge. Unfortunately, what the hell with these flavor profiles, I ask you? Okay, look. I'm not saying everything has to be like the classic flavors, okay? I'm not saying it has to like be basic, all the time. But I feel like we need to lean towards not just making a mess and calling it art and creativity. Okay. These are the flavor profiles for the food. They decide to do peanut butter graham crackers. First of all, Daniel goes into the seventh heaven when he finds out peanut butter is involved. It's like giving a dog a spoonful of peanut butter when he's been on dry dog food for about 17 years, and then he gets like a new flavor. He literally says that the idea of putting peanut butter with a s'more gives him chills. Dude, watch out where you go in life. If that for you is giving you a physical, visceral response, the world's too much for you. You need to be put in a bubble or in a padded room. Okay, well, anyway, they're going to make some peanut butter graham crackers. Okay, that's not wild, woolly, or crazy. Okay, whatever. But then they decide that along with the peanut butter, they're also going to be doing some lavender honey graham crackers. Chill on the lavender, everybody. All right, just freaking chill on that. But they want to do lavender. Meghan, what if we just lived in a world where floral flavors weren't part of every dang thing? But whatever. Okay. So then we move on to how are we going to do the marshmallows though? Like what flavor profile for the marshmallows? Meghan jumps in. Turmeric and vanilla bean. Turmeric. I mean, it's not 2014, but because it's so yellow. So we're going to do turmeric and vanilla bean. And then they decide to talk about the chocolate that she's provided. She's already made some chocolate bark, and these are her options. She pulls the first one out. What do you think, you guys? Oh, just your classic white chocolate with hemp hearts and flour sprinkles. Oh, delicious. Can't wait to sink my teeth into that crap. And then she pulls out other chocolate with, of course, crushed potato chips in it. Because why not? Maybe it's good, sweet and savory, okay. It also has pretzels in it and wafers, so that's going to be the crowd pleaser. She says that's for the crowd pleaser, but of course she had to do one for herself. Got to get those flour sprinkles in. Oh, you didn't know that it's part of the new pyramid? It's the base of the pyramid. Flour sprinkles. It has to be in every bite. Anyway, so we've got flour sprinkles and hemp hearts for our chocolate. Then we've got honey and lavender graham crackers and turmeric marshmallows. I mean, is it just me or is that just a lot going on? Am I just boring Betty? I don't know, probably, but it just feels like a lot. Like, can't we just do something like basic? I think Christina, though, is kind of known for doing like different bold flavors in her baking. So like maybe the whole point was to emphasize her originality as a baker and sort of showcase and highlight her skill set, maybe. And I didn't eat this. Maybe I've been missing out these many years. Maybe white chocolate with hemp hearts and flower sprinkles, lavender honey with peanut butter, and a turmeric marshmallow is the way we should have been eating s'mores all along. Maybe I'm just small-minded. Probably. Oh, I forgot to. There was also a brown butter marshmallow, because God forbid we do any baking without brown butter these days. And they enlist Daniel to melt the butter. You would have thought that they had asked him to redesign the Eiffel Tower, tear it down, and build it again with his own 2 hands in the next 24 hours. The fear that was struck into his heart, he's immediately like wringing his hands. And everyone turns to him and is like, that's what today is. Get out of your comfort zone, Daniel. And so he's over there just petrified. They hand him the pot and the butter and basically condemn him to die. He's standing over the stove, flapping his hands. Something's boiling, guys. Something's boiling. Meghan's laughing. He's just so excitable. That's why she put him on the show, because somebody that dim-witted makes her look like she's got her act together. Okay, well, after they get done making all the things for the s'mores, they put that away because the graham crackers have to cool and the marshmallows have to set and all this. So they put that to the side. Now it's time to make the main meal. Okay, so David's in charge of that because he's in charge of savory. Christina was in charge of sweet. David's in charge of savory. You can tell that David's like, when is this day going to be bleeping over, right? I mean, he's not loving having to direct 4 adults in the kitchen. Christina's competent. I can't speak for the other 2. Okay. And so he admits to feeling overwhelmed at having to do teamwork with this set of helpers. And so the stress and the strain in his eyes is palpable. The chaos is unbelievable. And there's just a lot of things going on. He's trying to direct. He tells poor, shaking, terrified Daniel to fix the sugar snap peas. Poor Daniel's over there, he's trying to ward off the Grim Reaper by just careful diligence. He's over there working like his life depends on it with the sugar snap peas. And it all ends, this chaos, with Meghan going, wow, this is definitely not the clean as you go method that I'm used to. Wow, this is really different than the way I would be doing it. Shut up, Meghan. He is over here trying to create a dinner with a bunch of vegetables from the garden and some pantry staples and the flank steak you had in the fridge. And he's coming up with this meal on the fly. And he's got to direct 2 incompetents plus a baker. And it just feels like maybe this isn't when you criticize the way somebody's running a kitchen that they aren't familiar with 3 other grown adults and a film crew. To point out the fact that this guy, things are rather untidy over at the kitchen sink. Well, nobody has decided to jump over there and start washing the dishes. At any time, Meghan could stop arranging radicchio or whatever it is and go and wash the dishes. At what point was she going to be like, hey, my job is going to be to clean the mess that you all are making? Instead of criticizing the fact that the dishes are over there in the sink. Who did she think was going to be washing the dishes as she went? But she's got to act like, wow, this is really different from I like things neat, tidy, and clean. I'm a really organized person. I am out of my depth. This is where I feel out of my comfort zone. This is my uncertain moment right now. This mess is too much. Remember, my song with Lily is clean as you go. Clean as you go. And no one's singing that. I just, so rude. Anyway, poor Daniel, he's over there. It's time to make the flatbread. He's once again confounded. He finished his sugar snap pea. Death had not descended upon him, but then they give him another colossal job. Flatten out this flatbread. Lord have mercy. How's he going to? He stands over there above his board, just fear and torment in his eyes. My bread is busted, says Daniel. My bread is busted. Much like your brain, sweet man. Anyway, finally the meal comes together, and they begin to eat the meal. You guys, this is what I am saying to you. Meghan, did it ever occur to you that on a cooking show, it might be nice if there was a table to sit at to eat any of these meals? They set the food out on the island, all right, and then they all just begin to chow down like a pack of wolverines. Okay, I'm telling you, we have people just slurping and slumming with their hands, their fingers, passing people food across the table, not the dish of food, passing food across the table to others, like taking food out of dishes and then passing that to other people. I'm telling you about people who are just eating with their mouths open, people just taking huge bites, licking fingers. What about sitting down to a table? Like, you've made this beautiful meal, and it is beautiful. We've got the flank steak, we've got the sides, we've got the flatbread. It's a great meal. Why are we standing over the island eating it with our hands on a cooking show? Where's the table? Where is the table? I kept just like, why would you go to the trouble to make this beautiful meal and then not even sit down and enjoy it? At one point, Meghan's like, as they're all just wolfing down the food, Meghan's like, it got real quiet. And Christina's like, that's all you know, that everybody's enjoying it. Like, you know what bothers me more than anything? When somebody mentions the silence. Wow, it's really quiet. No one's talking. Well, do you have anything to say, or you're just going to be awkward about it? Like, if no one's talking, don't mention the silence. Come up with a topic. Or just be okay with the fact that everyone's enjoying the food. Finally, it's time to go outside and enjoy the s'mores. So they sit around and do that. And of course, they make a mess. So because they're so relatable, they're going to comment on how messy they are eating the s'mores. And then Christina says, I think that a messy s'more is the only way to s'more. And then Meghan and Daniel start giggling like it's the funniest thing they've ever heard. And Daniel says, we ought to put that on a t-shirt. No. Your friend says something mildly humorous. That should go on a t-shirt. You know what needs to go on a t-shirt? Shut up about talking about what goes on a t-shirt. Okay? That's what should go on a t-shirt. That should go on a t-shirt. I'm telling you, the amount of times that this crew was laughing about things that weren't funny, just because they had to fill the awkwardness with laughter, lest it be filled with tears, were too numerous to count. All right. And that ended the episode. Poor Daniel. He's the one I felt sorry for the whole time. They all tried to make him feel good about how enthusiastic he'd been, especially about the peanut butter, what with his getting chills and everything. Meghan, there was too many people on the show to really focus too much on what she was doing. There was what with David and Christina and Daniel and her, there was a lot going on. So her flaws and foibles did not come out as much as they might. However, we did have to bear up under her latest pun that she's written on the chalkboard. What was today's? 2 is better than 1. I can't with the puns, you guys. I'm not a pun person. I don't find them humorous. I find them grating to my soul. She's got a pun for every day this week. All right, tomorrow we have Chrissy Teigen on. And you guys, before we even start that episode, I'm just going to remind you what an egregious character Chrissy is. Because although she's going to come off as the worst mother in Hollywood, because she does not know her children's birthdays and can't even read the tattoo on her arm that she put there so that she could remember their birthdays. She doesn't come off as like a hateful person, and she's pretty comfortable on camera. So you might not remember or recall why it's egregious that Meghan had her on. And I'm not saying we need to cancel people and everything, but I just don't think that Chrissy Teigen has necessarily shown that she's changed. That's my concern. All right, so that's tomorrow. I'll see you then. Thanks for hanging out with me. Talk to you soon. Bye.